Nice to have you in Vienna again.
It's great to be in Vienna again. I have a lot of friends here, so I feel like at home in some way.
Good to have you back home. So, yes, let's start with an introduction and a short overview of your 4 decades of comic work. So, like I said, you started in the 80s in a very young age to write, but not to draw. So, tell us about this music journalism and why you then choose to switch to comics, why you wanted to tell stories and later history in comics.
It's a long story, but I will try to cut it short. So I started actually as a music journalist. I was writing about the new wave bands, which were then in the late 70s, early 80s. It was something that was really important and very vivid, very interesting, which happened in Yugoslavia. And I was among the first kids, I should say, who, still as a teenager, who started doing his own fanzines. Mostly musical fanzines, but later on I became a kind of a music journalist, writing for some of the magazines, which were like national magazines, like Jukebox. And just the interesting thing about Jukebox is that it was in the early 80s when still there was the countries of the Eastern Europe, and a lot of people from the Slavic countries, for them it was easier to get a Yugoslav magazine than something from the United States or UK. So we had a lot of readers all over, in Poland, in Czechia, in Russia, Ukraine. It was a lot of people who were writing, and it was fun in a way. It was much different world than we have now. But yeah, at some point I started to make comics first as an experiment. And then I started, in the 90s, I started to send my works to the publishers in the United States. So I started actually to publish first in the United States without leaving my hometown of Pančevo, it's near Belgrade. So it was, I see it as a kind of a triumph of do-it-yourself technology. You can live in your small country with big problems and you can publish your work anywhere else. For me, the most interesting was the American comic scene, and so I decided to try to publish there, and it worked. Now, then after that, in the late part of the 90s, I was publishing more in France and in Italy and in other European countries. And so it was going on like that. Now I see myself as I also published in Japan 2 books have there, and just had an exhibition in Beijing, so I hope to get published there as well. So anyway, my idea is that artists should have no home, or his home should be everywhere. And I think I foolishly believe in brotherhood of man, you know, like an old hippie. I never was a hippie. And
Good son.
But anyway, I think it's great to have to meet nice people like you in wherever you go, and I think you always learn something by meeting new people, by going to another new country. Austria is not new for me, but anyway, it's like a learning process. You learn something. You can compare what they experience with what you experience, and I can suggest this to anyone who goes abroad. It's my little game that I play ever since I started to travel. You should imagine what your life would be like if you lived in that country where you are staying. I'm looking at the people, I'm looking at the buildings, and I imagine what it would be like if I went to that school, if I was meeting people at that very house and not in my hometown. So it could be fun, and you soon realize that there is human history which lives everywhere, and that you can find your home in every place that you meet, every new place or old place, or even the places that you haven't been ever in your life. It's where other people live, and so it's people have the energy. They have something interesting to tell you. So it's good to hear what they say.
Cool. Back to what you have to say, or what you had to say. I met your work when I was a teenager with this comic by Jochen Enterprises from Berlin, Leben unter Sanktionen, Life Under Sanctions. We reprinted it, and it was about the wars in Yugoslavia. So why you had the urge to write something like that, and especially like I don't know so much comic writers who ever wrote about this team, especially.
Yeah, that's true. It's very difficult to speak about these things. You know, what I did, I haven't been telling big stories like which army did what or something. I was concentrating on the little people from the neighborhood, and what they were telling me about their feelings in that situation. So it was something which was, again, the way to tell the human story in the most direct way. And the book which came out a couple of years ago, I think now, Partizan and Post, it's published here by Bahu, and it also speaks about the story of the common people during the Second War. For me, it was interesting also because it's always interesting to understand how the people are getting by in the difficult situations such as that, you know. And we can all learn from each other and from the experiences of each other, especially because that time, that war situation, in the during the Second World War, it was something that was going on all over the place, all over Europe and all over the world, and every family, I think, has some dramatic story to tell you about what happened then. So I was collecting some stories like that. A lot of these stories were actually gathered on the flea markets. It's one of my favorite places to go.
I love this technique. You call it minor findings. So.
Yes, I have this idea of minor findings. It's that you can always find something interesting in every time, in every place. I was in Bulgaria I can't remember, some years ago, and I have found, a little tiny eraser, which was dropped by some school kid. And that eraser had the human face on it. And I was really overwhelmed, and this seemed perfect to me, you know. And I said, this is a minor finding, which could be, which would make my day, today. And you can find it everywhere, you know. And it's these tiny human stories which are everywhere. You just have to find it someplace. So this is the major interest of my work, and also the performance that we are going to do today. Maybe if you agree, I can say that it's.
Of course.
Yeah, it's from the future book Partizan and Post #2, which will be published here sometime, maybe next year or something like that. And it's the continuation of these war stories that I did. And this one is about the director from Belgrade, who had a really interesting fate during the occupation of Belgrade. He was one of the young people who was fighting on the street against Nazis. They were basically high school kids. You know, he was not 19 when he started, and his story. He's well known as a director, but very small number of people knows about his personal story. So I tried to make it into a comic strip, and it's actually this will be the first time that we ever are performing this with the help of Jelena Popržan, the musician from Vienna, and so we will try to make a connection between comic art and music, and to tell the story about one man who lived in one time somewhere in this universe. I hope that it could be interesting in this way or another.
It definitely will. I hope we'll all see it together later. Yeah, other question. So you started to make political comics in the 90s, where you didn't really took sides. So I really loved it and understand then like the wars in the 90s better for me. Like everybody's fucked up. But then you started to do the history comics, like in Partizan and Post, where you are finding like the stories or the diaries of the small people, and you're retelling their stories. How people in Serbia or in the post-Yugoslav countries or in the rest of Europe, how they're reacting to it, what you're doing, because it's very special what you're doing.
Yeah, I have still a lot of friends in all the countries which were left after Yugoslavia. In most of them, I either published some of these stories, or I was having exhibitions like this, or also sort of lectures and stuff like that. I think if you speak about the experience of the people, it's something that everyone will understand. And of course, I was interested into the personal stories of the people. It's the same wherever you go. I didn't have a problem in China to speak with them and to present these stories, and much less I had the problem with the people from Slovenia or Bosnia or Croatia to speak about these stories. And especially because my stand, it was not, there were us and there were them. It was more the stand that we are all in this ship together, you know. And if we tell this story in a very direct way, in a very simple words, everyone can understand. I always mention Italian writer Curzio Malaparte. You know, he was writing during Mussolini, and he was just telling a truth in a very simple way, and basically it's the situation where everybody will understand that it's a simple truth, that it's not an invention, that it's not taking sides, that it's not a fantasy. As you will see in Partizan and Post number 2, Curzio Malaparte, and I found out about it very late in my life. I didn't know it when I was reading Malaparte. He came to the place, to a little village where my grandparents were living. So they maybe met at some point in 1941. And my guess is that if you have this kind of approach, if you tell everything that you have to say directly from your heart, from your experience, it's something that everyone will understand. And that is also one of the reasons it's possible to see my latest comic, which is speaking about, it's only 4 pages, and it speaks about the student protests in Belgrade, which are going on right now at this moment. And the story was published in many different countries, in quite not usual places where you would find a comic. You know, for example, in Italy it was published, and it's very difficult nowadays to publish 4 pages of color comic anywhere, you know, in the world. So it was published in Serbia first, in Vreme, which is an independent magazine, then in Croatia in Jutarnji List, which is a daily paper, which is not a comics. All of them are not comics publications. Then in Italy, in Internazionale, I published with them for decades. It's a very good magazine which deals with the international scene. So it speaks about everything that, or anything that could happen anywhere except in Italy. It's very interesting and good publication. And then it was published in a daily paper in Greece. Soon it's going to come out in Hungary, if it's not already this week. I still don't know. In Slovenia it was published online. In Sweden it should come out soon. So it's also in the States. So it's something which is speaking about the current thing, but not a classical story. It speaks about, from my point of view, which is a little bit strange, it speaks about the protests which are going on now in Serbia, and I think it's an important event for everyone, not just the local people in Serbia, because what we saw in the past is that most of the student protests, they would end up in being something
counter-revolution.
Yeah. So if this succeeds, and I believe that it will, it is going to be the good example for any people anywhere, you know, that some system could be changed. We are living in the systems which are almost unchangeable. You cannot change the way you live. You cannot change the way you exist in your system, so to say. So one good example would be a good thing to happen. I think it would be a good news for everyone or anyone anywhere.
Yeah.
So some people, I would like to know, could you describe the system which come later, after maybe the protest be win?
This is something for after.
Yeah, but I will say in short, it's something that still nobody knows if it's going to succeed or not. We don't know. Most probably, my personal belief is that it's going to succeed. What is going to happen next, we don't know. But it has these elements of direct democracy, which is something new and different in Europe at this moment. And it existed in the many ways in many countries. But if it wins this time, it would be a great thing. But with direct democracy, it's very difficult to transpose it to a larger system. You know, it works in a small groups of people, or at least to the student gatherings. If you and now it's happening also in the larger crowd within the citizen. But
could you tell us a little bit about these wars and what's happening like in Serbia? Because I think like really nobody here knows really what's happening there, and this is also why you wrote the story and why you tried that it's published like in the Western countries. So.
Yeah, well, this kind of direct democracy, which was used by the students in Serbia, has moved to the larger community. So there is something which is called zbor. Zbor, it's a very, it's the word which doesn't mean anything. It's like a gathering, when people gather together. And so you have the civilian people who collect together, and they decide about special topics. Sometimes it's political stuff. For example, they decide whether they are going to protest or not. But in most of the cases, they decide about the local things. For example, if you have something, just before I came here, I hear in the neighborhood, in Pančevo, where I live, they were getting together in Zbor in order to find a solution for the basketball, I think, terrain. And so they are getting together and they are finding solutions how to find the money and how to fix it and how to make it function again. And these kind of small changes, they don't seem that much when you think about it, but if it would grow up into some larger thing, it's very important. And at this moment, there are hundreds of, maybe now even thousands of Zbor gatherings all over the country. And we only hope that some of that will survive even after the system change. We don't know. I believe that most realistic will be that it is going to be some kind of a hybrid system with both direct democracy and representative democracy combined together in this way or another. And there is also one danger. We don't know how Europe is going to accept it. Now, at start, the EU was much more supporting Serbian politicians than the Serbian people, but it is changing slowly. We will see how it's going. We still don't know how the EU will react on this new kind of political organization among the people, and we know that Europe is very conservative and not very supportive.
But you said, like, at least they're recognizing now that the people are gathering together there, and that they maybe have, like...
We should see. It's still something that nobody knows how it is going. It's maybe going to all end up in 3 days, but maybe it will succeed, and maybe it's going to grow up into something new and original, which is, I think, very important, because we haven't seen original things for ages in the world that we are living. And this all came from the necessity, actually, because there was a deep crisis in the Serbian society. There was no way how to get out of that, and the people had to find some original solutions. I will speak also about a little bit about that in our performance.
About the protests now. So
about this form of protesting as the hope for the future change.
Yeah. So, like, it's a circle. It starts with the resistance.
Yes.
In the Second World War, on the underground, and goes to the resistance now.
Yeah, it's probably also connected with the local tradition, because at the beginning of the World War II, there was a large protest by the young people in Belgrade, who were all against the country, the Kingdom of Yugoslavia joining the Axis. And after that, it was very badly bombed, but these young people have brought some change. Then in 1968, there were big protests. So if the original protests in France were in May, protests in Belgrade were in June, and in other Yugoslav towns. I don't know, was it also here in Vienna, the 68 rebellion?
I came 92, I don't know.
Okay.
Right,
discuss it later. Yeah. But anyway, there was also Milosevic, who was ruling the country, and there was a protest, big student movement against him. So it's from generation that you have, and somebody has counted that it's every 27 years or something, that the large protests of the youth are being executed. So there is some tradition, and it just makes it more likely that something like that will happen if you had the experiences from the previous generation.
That would make sense, like, for me, who looks at it like from outside, but grew up like on the Balkans. For me, it also seems like these protests are about because nobody spoke open about the last 30, 35 years. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to follow anyway. How it is going to develop and how it is going to end up. But anyway, I promise that I'm going to do a comic story, a new one, at the day when it all stops. We don't know when it is going to be or how it is going to be. But at that moment I'm going to do a story which will speak about that, about the aftermath of it all.
Well, I should not ask more. I should not ask more. I should stop asking. It's true?
He's the boss.
What can I ask? That's what I ask him, the boss, the man in red. So?
Start.
Yeah. Okay. So it's allowed to ask another question?
Yeah.
All right. What I would like to know, is it true that the old party, the before of this one now, has been ruling and also influencing the students, or not?
What do you mean, the old party?
Yeah, the party before the one is now.
Well, basically it's not true, because the students, they just cut themselves off from any political party, and right from the start they said we don't want any political party or even activists or anything to connect with, because they wanted to have it be protected from the influence from the outside sources. And so, but one thing changed about a couple of weeks ago, when they were just asking, they had demands to the government, when they saw that the government is not willing really to even observe what is going on. They are now asking for the elections. So it makes them a little bit closer to the political party, but parties in general. But even now, they just their idea is that nobody from any political party can join can stand behind the protest, and they would not support anyone from the political party. So I think their idea is to make it completely independent, as something new, which would stand in front of the system. That's all that I can say. Again, whether they are going to succeed or not, we will see. I think the most likely is going to be some kind of hybrid. I don't know.
Thank you.